In the space of 7 months, I lost my job, my dad, and then my father-in-law. A 30-year corporate career came to an end with no backup plan. This is the story of how I broke a promise I made to myself at 22, became everything I swore I wouldn't, and what happened when I finally stopped. If you're 40 plus and recognize that feeling of slowly drifting away from who you meant to be, I'm going to tell you the whole story because it's the reason I do what I do now. My dad was a workaholic. I didn't see much of him growing up. He did a long commute into London to a high-pressure job in the airline industry, and when he wasn't working late, he was on the golf course at the weekend trying to unwind. So when I graduated in 1992, I made myself 2 promises. 1, I would never commute, and 2, I didn't want a job where I'd have to wear a suit and tie to work. I broke both of those promises within 4 years. I didn't break them all at once. It crept up on me the way it does for most people, I think. I went from a sales job in retail into branch management, which is when I had to start wearing a suit, and then into a head office role. And there I wasn't just commuting, I was traveling all over the country. That started a corporate career that took me into HR consulting, career coaching, and employer branding. By 2012, I was in a big job doing a midweek commute from Scotland to London, Tuesday to Thursday, pretty much every week. I kept climbing the ladder across a couple of firms for the next 8 years until it all came crashing down. I just kept going, kept telling myself this was normal. This was how you build a career and provide for your family. Keep going for bigger roles and a bigger salary. I worked it out a while ago. Over those 8 years, I missed something like 40% of my kids' lives. They were 9 and 6 when it started and 17 and 14 by the time it ended. I'd become my dad, the exact thing I promised myself at 22 I'd never do. I wasn't playing golf at the weekends like he was, but I was so exhausted from the work week, I didn't have the energy to really do that much. And at various points, usually when I was sitting in a hotel room or at an airport, I thought, is this it? Is this what my life is going to be like from now on? There wasn't a dramatic crisis, nothing blew up. It was just this relentless effort to keep going week after week. So I thought changing jobs might fix it. So I did that, and that was good for a couple of years. But then the darkest episode of my career began to unfold. In 2018, I got a new boss. Pretty quickly, it became clear to me that this person wanted to bring in their own people. I spent the next 2 years managing redundancies in my team and fighting for my own job at the same time. Nothing I did felt like it was ever enough. And while all this was going on, I was driving to visit my dad most weeks. He was in a nursing home with dementia, and I was watching him disappear bit by bit on each visit. I felt it was a bit like being in a room where the lights are dimming so slowly you don't really notice until you realize it's gone dark. And that was me turning 50 in February 2020. They say milestone birthdays make you think about your life. And I don't remember having any big epiphany, but I made a decision a couple of weeks after my birthday to leave that job. I didn't have anything lined up, not much of a safety net, just a decision that I couldn't keep doing this, and I had an idea about what I might do next. The plan was that I would set up on my own as an employer brand consultant. So I walked out on the 6th of March, 2020. If you think back to that time, you'll know what happened 2.5 weeks later. The UK went into lockdown. Turned out that was possibly the worst time in history to be setting up a recruitment-related business. And then from there, things continued to get harder. In April, my dad died after 4 years in that nursing home. Over the summer, money was tight and it was clear the business I'd planned to build wasn't going to happen. And then in October, my father-in-law died suddenly of a heart attack. And that was traumatic in a completely different way because there was absolutely no warning. So in the space of about 7 months, I'd lost my dad, lost my father-in-law, watched my new business plan collapse under lockdown, and had no income coming in. So when I hear people say, I'm just going to quit my job, I think, yeah, I get it, but you never know what's around the corner. In November, I had the good fortune of a former colleague tipping me off about a role she thought I'd be perfect for, and amazingly, I landed it, leading marketing for a career coaching company. It gave me some stability back in my life, and for the first time in years, some room to actually think. With that bit of breathing space, I started asking myself the question I should have asked a decade earlier. What do I actually want from my work and my life for the next chapter? I read a lot. I started training for a formal coaching qualification, and then I read something that stopped me in my tracks. A lot of coaches coach who they used to be. That was a real light bulb moment for me, because it made me think, if I ask myself honestly, when would I have most benefited from having a coach? And the answer was obvious. It was right there in 2018, 2019, at the bottom of my own happiness curve. Not having a midlife crisis, but in the depths of what I call my midlife slump, wondering if this was it. I qualified as an ICF coach, and over the last 2 years, I've built what I call the U-reimagined framework, a way of helping people going through exactly the kind of transition I went through, but with someone walking alongside them instead of stumbling through it alone like I was. What I know from working with the people that I've coached through this is that I am definitely not the only person who's hit their late 40s with a career that looks really successful on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. That's exactly why I built the U-reimagined program. It's what I wish I'd had when I was going through this. It's for senior professionals who aren't in crisis, but who know they can't keep running on empty either. It draws on the design thinking principles I used during my time in branding and marketing for people who want a clear, honest way to redesign their midlife without blowing up everything they've built. If you're over 40 and you've ever felt like the life you've built doesn't fit anymore, hit subscribe, because this channel is about how to redesign your midlife one step at a time. I've been where you are, and I'm going to share everything I've learned, how to overcome midlife's challenges, how to find more energy, satisfaction, and fulfillment with practical tools that actually help. Thanks for watching. Drop any questions in the comments. I read every one, and I'll see you in the next one.